Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today's episode, we're going to talk shortly about when you're writing a paper about Navy ships, how to write like a naval historian. Because we can tell if you know what you're talking about and if you don't, based on a couple of key things. First of all, when you're writing a ship's name, the ship's name should be in italics. So your regular sentence is in regular text, and then New Jersey would be in italics if you're referring to the ship's name. That way you can tell the difference between the state of New Jersey and the ship New Jersey. The whole thing doesn't go in italics though. So for USS New Jersey, USS would be capitalized but in regular uppy downy font. I don't know what that's called. Normal font. And then New Jersey would be italicized. And then let's say you've got the hull number after that, BB62. You would do parentheses, capital B, hyphen, 62, the other end of the parentheses. So that's the correct way to do a ship name. You should always introduce the ship that way the first time you say it. And then after that, in your paper, book, or whatever it is you're writing, you can be New Jersey, Big J, Black Dragon, BB62, any of these other acronyms. You don't have to continue to write out the full thing every time. However, every time you write the word New Jersey, meaning the ship's name, it should be italicized. And that goes for any other ship, including ships which names are their hull number. So for example, LST 393 in Muskogee, Michigan, you would write that as the ship's name, all in italicized, capital L, capital S, capital T, hyphen 393. Typically, you would not also then include parentheses, the ship's hull number, because it's the same as the name. If for some reason you can't use italics, you're using a typewriter or something that doesn't do italics, then the next best thing to do is to write the entire ship's name in all capitals. And that distinguishes the name from the rest of the text around it, or the state of New Jersey. Likewise, if for some reason this is a quotation, or for some other reason the entire body of the text is italicized, then the ship name would be normal, straight uppy downy. I'm sure there's a correct word for that. While we're talking about names, this is the biggest one that tells me whether people know what they're talking about or not. The word the. Articles are the absolute bane of my existence. You should not put the word the before a ship's name. You would not say, the New Jersey fought in World War II. It's an unnecessary word. You just say, New Jersey fought in World War II. That said, if you're throwing in an extra word, like Battleship New Jersey, you could write the Battleship USS New Jersey did this. Or you could also just say Battleship USS New Jersey. But you never write the New Jersey or the whatever other ship name. Just get rid of that article entirely. If you are describing a ship by its ship type, and I'm okay if you do this cruiser Salem, Battleship New Jersey, it would not be a proper noun, i.e. capital B, Battleship. It would still be a lowercase b, Battleship New Jersey. If you're talking about the museum, Battleship New Jersey Museum, then it's a proper noun and the first letter of every word should be capitalized. But if it's the name of the museum as opposed to the name of the ship, you do not italicize the ship name in that. So Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, when you're writing times, you would typically use local time, or you would explicitly say that this is not local time. And if you're going from primary sources, usually the deck logs are filled out in local time, at least in the American Navy. I think the Imperial Japanese Navy would always do Tokyo time. But that's something to watch out for. And you use the military or the European time, so 7:30 a.m. would be 0730. 8 o'clock p.m. would be 2000 hours. Oftentimes people will use gender-neutral pronouns for ships. It. I always use she for ships that are referred to as she, he for Bismarck. Doing things like this shows that you understand the ships and how the crews speak about them. It shows that you've done a bare minimum of research, and that comes off to the people who are reading it as well. We immediately know, oh, this guy wrote the ship name the right way. This guy didn't use the word the. This guy is using feminine pronouns, or they used he for Bismarck. They know the bare minimum of naval history. You read a newspaper article that's written by a reporter who doesn't typically cover naval things. Ships are its, things aren't capitalized right. You know that the guy doesn't know it intimately. If you're writing a paper, a history thing, something like that, doing these things really shows that you know the content intimately. Another thing that really shows whether you know what you're talking about is the general vocabulary you're using to describe shipboard parts. Do you say you're walking on the ground or the floor, or do you say the deck? When you're referring to the things that the guns shoot, do you call them cannonballs, shells, projectiles? There is a scale of what is acceptable there. When in doubt, the military uses extremely precise language. And so when you're reading a primary source document, it will often refer to the 16-inch projectiles, and that is the best term for it. Shell is still accurate, it is an exploding shell, but projectiles shows that you've taken that from the primary source. You can go too far though. Oftentimes people will use very inclusive language when they're talking about ships and military equipment. For a channel like this where we're trying to reach a wide audience, we use the broadest possible terms so that people understand what we're talking about. And it's not always the most precise term that somebody doesn't know. And oftentimes when we use a super precise term, we'll be on the starboard side of the ship. We'll then also say, that's the right-hand side when you're facing the bow, just so that people can pick up on these terms. While precise terminology is often important, only having one word for something is ridiculous. The English language has hundreds of thousands of words, and oftentimes they're used interchangeably on a ship. For example, the number of times people have jumped on something on the internet because somebody calls the head or the bathroom on the ship a restroom is ridiculous, because the blueprints alternatively call them water closets or restrooms or washrooms, and never a head. So any of those words are applicable, and it's what the Navy used. So going out there and saying, no, you can only use this word, that's not true at all. There's words that you can use for everything. Shells and projectiles are the same thing. A torpedo is not a missile. A missile is not a shell, but a shell and a projectile is the same. That said, throw on board out of your vocabulary. Sailors are stationed on a ship or at a ship. They are not stationed in a ship. Weighing anchor and anchors away. Do not use W-A-Y. It is W-E-I-G-H for away or way. When writing out a word, make sure you spell it the way it's supposed to be and not the way it sounds. This is especially an issue with acronyms. CWIZ is C-W-I-S. It's not S-E-E-W-I-Z or something. Slick 32 is SLQ-32. It's not S-L-I-C-K. Be careful with acronyms, especially if it's a paper, to make it as accessible as possible for the widest possible audience. Write out what it is, Bureau of Personnel, then have in parentheses BUPERS, and then you can refer to it as BUPERS anywhere else in that paper, but make sure the first time you're introducing something that you write out the full thing. Close-in weapon system, parentheses, CWIZ, and then the CWIZ does, just to make it so that people can figure out what you're talking about. This is just a few of the things I've noticed reading naval history. It took me a very long time to realize what it was that made me think, oh, this guy knows what they're talking about, versus, oh, this guy has no idea. They referred to the ship as an it. They've never heard of a ship before, have they? And if there's only one thing you take away from this, get rid of the word the entirely. The has no place on battleships. So this was just a brief primer, certainly not everything. Let us know in the comment section down below some other indicators that you've noticed when you know what somebody's talking about and what they're writing, and some other grammatical styles that are specific to ships. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to continue donating to support the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.